Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Kuf Nun Hey in Baba Bas, which we learn for Achenu basis for on soon about Sarah Shivya. Hopefully, this ceasefire will hold, and maybe it'll help us in the south also. Itmar says the Gemara in the 9th line on daf Kuf Nun Hey Amid Aleph will be left off yesterday. Itmar Cotton Me'emasai Mochem Nechseyava. Now we're gonna Rashbam is gonna point out we had a Gemara and get in other places that a child really under bar mitzvah. Bar mitzvah is halacha l'moshe Sinai, that a boy who's 13 or a girl who's 12 years old, they are bar mitzvah. They're responsible for mitzvahs, and what they do is normally considered done. They can give a boy who's bar mitzvah can give a testimony in court. It's considered a gadol kol davar. However, in this case, we say a cotton, if he inherited his father's real estate, at what point can he sell? Can he deal and sell his father's real estate? He's bar mitzvah. Is that good enough? We had the case of Bnei Brak. We're going to talk about it again here now. From what age is he fit to deal with real estate? Now, Rashbam says, "Cotton hayoresh nifsei of base." We're not talking about a child who's under bar mitzvah. We're talking about even though he's bar mitzvah, he's 15 years old. He's not responsible. The rabbi said that in terms of selling karka, in terms of real estate, when is it considered a valid sale? Not at bar mitzvah, even though technically Minat Torah is bar mitzvah, his actions are considered valid. No, the rabbi said a different amount. Unless he's well versed. If he's not well versed in commercial matters, he's still considered a child, and therefore the rabbi said, not Minat Torah, but the rabbi said that at what point can he sell his father's real estate? Rav Amar, at what time? Rav Amar, Rav says, name of Nachman Meshmon Asrei Shana. It's got to be 18. If he's 17 years old and he doesn't really understand real estate and commercial matters and buying and selling, his sales are not considered valid until he's 18. Rav Huna Bar Chinna Amar Rav Nachman, they machlokas what Rav Nachman said. Ben Esrim Shana, he's got to be 20 years old. In other words, even though he's bar mitzvah and he's responsible for his actions, a sale that he made of his father's assets when he didn't really understand commercial matters, if he's not 20 years old, it's not valid. Once he's 20, fine, it's valid. Then we don't, if he's 20 years old and he's really, obviously he's a gadol in terms of simonim. Simonim means puberty. If he's puberty and he's 20 years old, then his deals are good no matter what. That's how Rashbam learns that we're speaking about, not about assets that he bought himself, but assets of his father's. Assets that he bought himself certainly would be. Other Rishonim learn differently. That we're only talking about assets that he himself bought or were given to him. But his father's he can never sell until he's at least until he's old, until he's past 20 years old. So the Rashbam says, when we say 18 years old, what do we mean? Rashbam, 2 lines from the bottom of the page in Rashbam, he says, in other words, at what stage are his dealings in real estate considered valid and he can sell his father's stuff? If he's 18 years old, because we said he's got to be 18, meaning he had his 18th birthday, that means he's fulfilled 18 years. When we say a person's bar mitzvah or you're 20 years old, it means you've already had your 20th birthday. You've lived 20 full years. That means not in the 18th year, but he's finished 18 years. He's had his 18th birthday, which means it's really 18 years and a day. On the day that of your birthday, you're really fulfilled. If somebody says, I'm 27, that means he's lived 27 full years and he's on his birthday. That means the day after he's fulfilled 27 years. So Rashbam says there, even though he doesn't know, he doesn't understand commercial dealings, if he understands things, then even if he's bar mitzvah, it's good enough. So if a boy is 13 or a boy is 12 or a girl's 12, and they understand business, then their actions are valid and they can sell their father's real estate regardless. But if they don't understand, then a boy has to be, or presumably a boy and a girl also, at least 18 or 20. Masr Rav Zeir, now back in the Gemara. 7 lines from the bottom of the page of the Gemara. Masr Rav Zeir, the story we had yesterday. A man sold his father's real estate, and then the boy died. This boy, however old he was, sold his father's real estate and he died. The boy who died, his family came, and they protested, Lomer Katnaya, it's not a valid sale. He was a child when he sold it. We want our property back. He katan b'shas misa. Even when he died, he was a katan. Certainly when he sold it, he was a katan. Ubal v'shos Rabbi Kiva. They asked Rabbi Kiva, obviously the Mard Asra in Bnei Brak. Malabotko. Can we exhume the body? This is the case we had yesterday. Can we exhume the body to see if he's a katan? You cannot disgrace the body. And as we saw yesterday, it could be that we're speaking, there's two ways to learn, right? Was it the family of the purchasers who asked this, or as we came out, no, maybe it's the family himself of the body of the deceased. And they said, and he said, you're not allowed to disgrace the body, but even if you would disgrace the body, these are simon that can change after death. In other words, what do you want to prove? That he's a katan because he has no puberty, no pubic hairs? They could have fallen off after he died, or they could have grown after he died. We can't tell. Something like that could change after that. That's what they said. Now, what was the point of checking? If you say that if he's 18 years old, and he was, and he had simonim, if a person, we always assume, as we'll see later on, it's how halacha you're supposed to check, but we assume a person has a beard, that he probably has pubic hair too. I think that's what most rabbis assume. But there are many people who are questionable. And he's not really bar mitzvah unless he is 13 years old, a girl 12. But I'm talking about a boy at 13 years old, and he has simonim. So what was the point of checking? Let's say, let's check the body. Let's check the body to see if he was capable of selling or not. Right? Was he a katan or not? So he said, well, don't check anyway because it could have changed after death. It doesn't prove anything. What are they checking for? Bishlam Domer says that when he's 18 years old, he's capable of selling property. I said, what do you want to check? What do you want to check? To see if he has simonim. Rashbam, top line is the Rashbam. If they find no pubic hair, that was the thing. He's going to be a katan. That's from until he's 20 years old. So once he's 20 years old, he's a gadol, as we'll see, no matter, let's assume that even if he doesn't have pubic hair at the age of 20, but he's what's called a saris, a eunuch, as we'll see, then he's a gadol anyway. But I understand, if you say, if he's 18 years old, he's capable of selling, so we can understand. If he had hair, if he didn't have any hair, then he's considered katan, and his sale's not a sale. So that's why I say, let's check him. Let's check him. How old was he? They have his birth certificate, but they want to see if he had hair. Okay, so we understand why they wanted to check, because if he didn't have hair, say, look, he was a katan. He was 18 years old, he wasn't a katan necessarily for bar mitzvah, but he would, if he didn't have hair, even if he's 18, he's still not bar mitzvah. But if certainly, if we said, even if he had hair, he wasn't 18 years old, he's not capable of selling. So we said, let's check him. What do you want to check in exhuming the body? Assuming they knew he was 18 years old. So they want to see, did he have hair or not? If he didn't have hair, then he's not capable of selling, right? She'im lo yimsabosaris yachzaku kakot not esrim. V'dafkulin yin limkork v'nechsadonli for selling tartu you need both shmonas rishana v'shanim. Avalin yin onshim umitzvos when it comes to punishment and keeping the mitzvahs. Ben you gimel chashiv gadol and maybe saris if he's 13 years old. In other words, we're only talking here about selling property, and the rabbi said that if a kid doesn't know what he's doing, even if he's 15, 16, or 17, and he doesn't know what he's doing, he doesn't understand business matters, doesn't understand, the broker said it's worth 1 million. Okay, I guess it's worth 1 million. No, you see what the market is. You put it out there, somebody will offer you 5 million for it. He doesn't know what he's doing. So he doesn't know what he's doing. He's at 18. So what was the point there in the story in Bnei Brak? This kid sold the property. His family said he didn't know what he was doing. He's a kid. He didn't know. He didn't know anything. What are you checking? If you say that he had to be 18, okay. So you want to check if he's 18 and see if he had hair. If he didn't have hair, he wasn't capable of selling. As the rabbi said, you got to be 18 and be bar mitzvah. You have to have 18 and hair. But if what? Back in the Gemara. So if you say the one who says 18, I understand they were checking he was 18. They wanted to check. If he had hair, he was bar mitzvah. He was capable of, not only bar mitzvah, he was capable of selling a property. If he didn't have hair, he wasn't capable of selling because he wasn't really bar mitzvah. In the second line of the Gemara, ben Esrim, if you got to be 20 years old to sell, what if they checked him? If he's 20 years old, even if he didn't have hair, he's bar mitzvah, right? If you say he's 20, you say you got to be 20 to sell property. What was the point of checking him then? What was the point? You want to check the body to see if there's hair. If he's 20 years old, he's bar mitzvah. He's anyway a gadol for selling hair. if you say, if for selling property, if he's 20 years old, even if he didn't have any hair, he's already a gadol for selling property. If you Eliyam Ben Esrim, we're trying to prove now that the one who says 18, the one who said Rav Nachman that 18 years old is what you need. Oh, made sense to check. It's a check to see they knew he was 18. Did he have hair? Didn't he have hair? If he didn't have hair, he couldn't sell. If he did have hair, he could sell. But if you say you have to be 20 years old, what was the point of checking him? Even if he didn't have hair, 20 years old is considered old enough to sell. Eliyam Ben Esrim Kibat Kula Mayhave. But time we learned Ben Esrim Shalo Avishtei Saras. If he's 20 years old and he didn't bring pubic hair, Yaviu Rayishim, bring proof. You have a birth certificate or item that he's 20 years old. Who Asaras? He's a gadol. He's considered a eunuch, a saras, who's not going to ever develop into a normal man. Lo cholitz v'lo miyabim. He doesn't need chalitz. What are we talking about here? Case is Reuven died with no children, and his brother Shimon, he has one brother Shimon who could do yibum or chalitza, but Shimon does not look like a real man. Doesn't have a beard. He's got a girly voice, very smooth skin. He's got feminine characteristics. So if he's 20 years old and he has those characteristics, only chalitza, meaning she's free to marry. Because why? Because Yibam, the point of Yibam is lahakim shem lahachib. He should establish for his brother and keep his brother's name going. Right? They'll have a child, name the child after the deceased, whatever. So he's got to keep it going. But if he's not capable of having children, then there's no point of Yibam. And if there's no Yibam, there's no chalitza either. Kol Yibam ol chalitza, kol she'en ol Yibam and ol chalitza. So that was the point of the halach over there. That we say a man's 20 years old and he didn't bring shtei saras, he's a gadol. He's a gadol for all matters. He's a gadol who's never going to develop, but he's considered bar mitzvah at that point, right? So what do you see? So you see here. So what was the point of checking? If you're saying that when he's 20 years old, he's capable of that's the age in which he could sell property. What was the point of checking for? If you say 18, fine. We know he's 18. We want to check. Did he have hair? Didn't he have hair? Was he capable of selling out? But if the point at which he's allowed to sell property is 20, what was the point of checking? When 20, you're a gadol anyway. Yeah, that's it. There's no even without the hair, you're a gadol. Says the Gemara, Lavit Merala. We explained it over there. Amar Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, Amar Rav. It's not enough just to be 20 years old and not having hair to be considered a gadol. You have to have the simonim of a saras, meaning the Gemara in Yavamas talks about various simonim. He has no beard. He's got a girly voice. His skin is very smooth. Various aspects of his urine, maybe it doesn't arch when he urinates. All kinds of simonim that a saras has. So it's only if he has those simonim does 20 years old make him into a gadol because he's a saras. But if he's 20 years old and he didn't have hair, but he doesn't have those kind of simanim, he's just late developing. In a case like that, he's still not bar mitzvah. In other words, so that's the point of checking. The point of checking is if, let's say, he didn't have simanim of a saras, he wasn't like that. But if he didn't have hair, he just didn't have any hair yet, so he's still not bar mitzvah. He's not like if he's 20 years old, he's bar mitzvah anyway. There was a point in checking. Even when he's 20, there's a point in checking because he didn't have those simanim of a saras. So therefore, the question simply was maybe he was late developing, or maybe we just didn't know how late. Assuming we knew he was 20 years old. So that's only if he has simanim of a saras. And as this that you say that he doesn't need chalitz or yibam, that's only that he doesn't have to perform yibam or chalitz and she's free to marry. That's only if he has some, besides not having pubic hair, he also had these other feminine characteristics. Rava says they can make sense. The kanibahu asaras. It's not simply he doesn't. It says as far as meaning, and he's also a saras. He doesn't have the hair, and he's a saras. Shma mina. Says Gemara na b'chilo no siman samaras ad kama. When is he considered cotton? Let's say a boy never develops. He doesn't have the simanim of a saras. He's not feminine like, but he doesn't. He just doesn't have puberty. He doesn't have puberty. So until what age is he considered cotton? Until he's 36. An average person lives 70 years old. 70. More once he's had most of his years, meaning he's had his 36th birthday. And then he's considered a gadol. So in a difficult case like that, when Reuven died with no children and he had a brother Shimon did not have puberty, but he didn't have puberty, but he also didn't have siman of saras. He wouldn't be able to perform yibum technically until he was 36. He wouldn't now, or he couldn't give a chalitza, because chalitza you have to be a bar mitzvah. Yibum technically he could perform even at the age of 9, because as long as he's capable of having bia, he could do it. So he could do yibum, but he couldn't do chalitza. Chalitza you have to be bar mitzvah, both her and him, as we'll see. But for yibum, how is yibum done? By simply by having bia, right? By bia, so that makes it happen. So if he could do bia, then they would be married at that point. As we'll see later on, he could pardon?
There's the alopecia areata where you lose all.
Right.
But all the other things are
there,
functional.
yeah, right, functional, right. I think it's functional. Of course, he couldn't divorce her till he's 13, because he couldn't give a get till he's 13. But even could take place even at 9 years old. Maybe it wouldn't be recommended, but it would work, right? So, okay. So, and Rav Shalom. Now, it just tells you a story that many times when people did not develop pubic hair, if he was like emaciated, he was weak, he says, fatten him up a little bit, give him something to eat. Sometimes that will help him reach puberty. If he was too fat, put him on a diet. Sometimes they come when he's weaker. In other words, the pubic hair sometimes develops based on a person's diet, etc., or his physical condition. So he would recommend doing that.
During the show.
Pardon?
During the show,
that happened a lot. Yeah. Women for sure did not function normally, right? Right. So that's what happened. So Mamela, we still have this machlokas. At what age? Again, bar mitzvah, 13 or 12. You're chayiv and mitzvos. See punishment. The Mepharshim say, right? The Chazal say that you don't have they don't get punished until 20 years old. But that's not the same that we're talking about over here. Here, Rashbam said that we're talking about when he's not 18 or 20 yet, and he doesn't understand commercial real estate. So not commercial real estate, doesn't understand commerce and buying and selling. If he understands buying and selling, then it's different. Then even at bar mitzvah, you can do it. Now the Gemara asks this question when we say you have to be 18 or 20. Really, the same thing is for bar mitzvahs. As I pointed out before. What happens if you're in that year? You're in the 18th year, right? If a person is 32 years old today, he's already into his 33rd year. So when a person is in his 20th year, does he have to be in his 20th year or in his 18th year, or does he have to have the full birthday? So the Tochsman, if he's in let's say the 18th year, is that like he's not 18 yet? Or is it like he's already 18? So Rabbi Nachman Tochsman Kalifneisman, he says that's how we paskin that in middle of the year. In middle of that year, in middle of that zman, it's like Lifneisman. So if you're in your 18th year, you're not 18 yet. Just like we hold, right? If you're in your 13th year, you're not bar mitzvah, you're bar mitzvah on your birthday when you fulfilled 13 years. Rava Bar Rav Shila Amar of Nachman, Tochsman Kalachsman. He says no, he disagrees. He says that in the 18th year, you're like 18 already. Bahada Rava La Befavor Shitmar. This is Rava said. We said Rava Rav Nachman and Rava Rav Nachman. This is Rava said that you have to, if you didn't fulfill the full 18th year yet, you're not 18 yet. He didn't say it openly. It was deduced from something that happened from a story, but that's the halacha, as we'll see. But you can't tell from that story. What was the story? Dahu Tochsman, the Uzzle. There was a man. Let's say he was in his 20th year. If we hold that you have to be 20 years old. If you don't understand real estate, you have to be 20 years old for it to be a valid sale. 20 years old, presumably, and you had shtei saros, you had puberty. He went and he sold the assets of his father, the real estate. They came for Rabba. It's not, he hasn't done anything. In other words, his sale is not a valid sale. Now, Mandachaz, the one who saw Rava's psak, Savar, he thought that the reason is because since he's not 20 years old yet, he's in his 20th year. That's like Lefnei's man. So he's not 20 years old. He doesn't understand business. And therefore, Rava said that it's not a valid sale. Below, that's not what happened over there. There, Rava said it's not a valid sale because he saw that the kid was a fool. He was freeing all his slaves for no benefit. He was just freeing them. So he saw that he didn't understand real estate. And he saw that he wasn't a shota, but he saw that he was acting foolishly. And therefore, he said he doesn't understand business. and his real estate and his deals are not. And that, so it's not because the truth is he had to be 20 years old anyway. But even though he was in his 20th year, or in his 18th year, if you learn it's 18th year, in the middle of the year, the reason Rava said it's not a sale is not because of the fact that he wasn't fully 20, but because he said he was a fool there, and therefore his sale, he didn't know what he was doing. Maybe he was even considered like a shota. A shota deal would never be a deal, even if he's 70 years old. Sholach like Gidol Bar Menashe. Gidol Menashe sent this question to Rava. Teach us, Rabbi. Tinokas bas abras shon of Yom Echad. We have a girl here. We have a case here with a young lady. She's 14 years old. She's bat mitzvah. But she knows business. She understands buying and selling. Mao, is her sale valid? So Rava sent him back in Yodas b'tiv masa umatan mekha says doesn't say mekha because that's obviously what she buys is valid. Question is, can she sell? We're concerned that a person who doesn't know what he's doing will give away his father's, his family's real estate at a ridiculously low price. So Rava said, listen, if you know what you're doing, fine. Then it's valid. If she's bat mitzvah, there's no problem. So why did he ask the question about a girl who's 14? Why didn't he say about a boy? That was happening. It happened in a case like that the girl was 14 and she sold property and she knew what she was doing. Is it valid? He says, yes, it's valid, but the same thing would have been for a boy. So why don't you ask about a 14-year-old girl, even a girl who's 12 years old, and yet she's had puberty and she's 12 years old. She's a bat mitzvah. Why don't you ask that? Notice he always says in the lashon of the Gemara, it's always 12 years old in a day. Why 12 years old in a day? That means you fulfilled full 12 years old. On your birthday, you're always the day you were born, right? If you count 365 days or 354 days from that day, right? You're really fulfilled it with the end of the previous day. On the day of your birthday, you are whatever you are, 13, 12, 20, 50, 81, whatever you are, it's 80, it's that day, it's you fulfill that amount of years plus the day of today. So Shnei means that's your birthday. So why didn't he ask about 12 years old? As we said, that was the story. Back in we're in the Gemara now, right, where the parentheses which she takes out. There was a story with a boy who was less than 20 years old. He sold his father's assets, right? Because he knew what he was doing. Gilal bar Menashe was the one who asked the question. If you know what you're doing, is it okay even less than 20? The whole issue of 18 or 20 is if you don't know what you're doing. Once you're 18 or 20, you're bar mitzvah. If you have shtei saros and you're 18 or 20, then you could definitely, whether one says 18 is 18, one says 20, it's done even if you don't know that much what you're doing. But if you're less than that, so here he was less than 20, but he knew what he was doing. Also came for Rava, Amalei Krove. So his relatives told him, pretend you're an idiot. So when you come before Rava, in other words, they were questioning the sale. Again, one of the kids in the family sold the property, and he was less than 18 or less than 20, but he knew what he was doing. But the family wanted to invalidate the sale. They didn't want to say, they wanted to say what you did is no good. So they said, pretend you're an idiot. When you go to Rava, pretend you're an idiot. So he told them, Zil, Achel Time, go eat some dates, and throw the pits at Rava. You come before the rabbi and throw the pits at him. So he'll think you're an idiot. And then he'll say the sale's not valid because since you're not 18 or you're not 20, and if you're not 18 or you're not, in this case, you're not 20, then you have to know what you were doing. If you look like an idiot, then you didn't know what you're doing. That's what he did. So Rava said, it's not a sale. Not a sale. When they wrote the verdict, they wrote down the verdict to tell him the sale is invalid. Now the purchasers who wanted the sale to be valid said to the young boy, Zil Aimale Rava, go tell Rava, I don't understand. Rava, Megillus Esther Bazuzah. It costs to write a Megillus Esther, which is a long Megillah, costs $1. Shtar Damar Bazuzah, and now they're asking me to pay for the scribe. That also costs us a small little document saying the sale is not valid. Why should they both be equal? That's a good question. If it costs $1 to write a Megillah, why should it cost $1 to write this little document? Also, so he went and he told that to Rava. Amr lahu, so Rabbi says the guy understands money now, right? If he says, why should this cost what that costs, he understands money. So I reverse my verdict. Zvina, it's a good sale. It's a good sale because he knows something. When he threw pits at me, I thought he was an idiot. Now that he understands business, he says, why should these cost the same thing? It's a good sale. Omule Krove. So, but now his family who wanted to invalidate the sale said, no, they told him to ask that question. It's, like they were pointing out, they just told him, they taught him what to say. He really doesn't know what he's doing. Amr lahu, Rava said, Masbrele Savar. When they explain it to him, he understands. Even the Masbrele the Savar, since when they explain it to him, he understands the question. Maybe he knows enough. Why did he throw the pits at me? He was very impudent. He was mechutzev. He was mechutzev. I see now he knows business. He just was a chutzpah. He didn't throw the pits at me because he was an idiot. So sometimes you have to check things carefully.
Enough to listen to the other litigants.
Right.
And he didn't take into consideration.
Clearly, he wasn't that bright. Yeah. Okay. Omar Afuna Breder of Yeshua in the Gemara. Omar Afuna Breder of Yeshua. Even though he's not 18 or 20, and you said what he sells is not a sale if he doesn't know what he's doing. Once he's bar mitzvah, his edus is valid. Omar Marzutra, Lomer El Metalfli. If it's a comment edus about movables, since he doesn't know about buying and selling values, then he's not good give testimony about karka. And Tosa says that we mean over here. The last Tosa says, in other words, if it's about a sale, did the sale take place or not? That he could be. What's the difference? Talking about when they're asking him what was the value, how much was it worth? That kind of thing. That's what Tosa goes on to say, right? There's the milestone metati. For that, he's not good. In other words, his testimony is valid for movables, not for karka. If we're talking about valuations, because if he's not an expert in buying and selling, because he doesn't understand what they're worth, he wouldn't be good for edus for that either. Why do you say metalflin? He can give testimony. Why? This vina is vina because his sale was good. At the time we learned, the rabbi said that young children who are the ages of 6 or 7 years old, if they go to the store and they buy a loaf of bread or a carton of milk or something, their sale or their purchase is valid. So why do they say that? Because otherwise the kids couldn't be able to live. The parents are out working, the kid has no food. He's got to be able to buy and sell stuff just to go on with life. So the rabbis made that takana. Are you going to say, Hachanami, since their sale is good, they do Sanais, could they be good edus at that age of 6 or 7? I'm going to say answer no. Hasam being about Dushan, like there, it comes to witnesses, Pasuk says they had to be, the 2 men have to stand. Women can't be valid witnesses in a Jewish court, and they have to be bar mitzvah, they have to be anoshim. That's a special case. But here where we're talking about giving edus for metalflin, it's not because they could buy and sell. The buy and sell is a special halacha for 6 and 7 years old that they could buy metalflin for kedei chayiv, so they should be able to prosper, to live in the world. Otherwise, they could starve or something bad can happen to them. They got to be able to buy and sell metalflin. But for edus, if they're bar mitzvah in general, for metalflin, it's good. Unless Tosa says, even if it's a case of karka in terms of was it sold or not, that they're good for because of their bar mitzvah. Omar Meimer. And it's not clear, right? He says, interesting, but Meimer says, even though he can't buy and sell, but they can give away things. Even though at 18 or 20, because they don't understand value, they don't understand prices and things like that. So, but their sales value. How does that make sense? When it comes to selling, the makabel zuza, when they're getting money for it, when they sell something, they're getting money for it. Amrit delo, you say they can't. Amrit delo, they can't sell. Dilma mosul masum, because maybe they'll sell it at a low price. So koshke matana delo matli b'lamini. How can they give something away? If you say they can't buy and sell when they're not 18 or not 20 and they don't understand business, they can't buy or sell because they might give it away too cheap. So certainly when they give it away for free, that they shouldn't be able to. So how can a Meimer say that the gift is a good gift? And from, you don't see it, the Rashban doesn't point it out. That's mashma, we're talking about real estate. Even if it gives away a piece of real estate, because we're talking about metalton, for sure you could do. I mean, the whole issue over here is only on karka. He says, even though they can't buy and sell, but they could give it away. Amrlei, so he answered him. He says, what kind of, how does that sense? Rav Ashi said to Maimer, how do you say if you can't buy and sell, but you can give it away? He's not, in buying and selling, you're getting something for it, but you're giving away, you're getting nothing. Amrlei, let's say he did a good sale. He sold something that was worth 5 and he sold it for 6. The kid made a good sale. Would you say it's a good sale? No, you don't say it's a good sale. You say that he doesn't know what he's doing. That a child, when is very enticed by money, if you say his sale is a good sale, they'll rattle some money in front of him, and he'll sell all his father's assets. So the rabbi said, a child who's 14, 15, 16, up to 18 or up to 20, and he doesn't understand business, you just throw him some money at him and he'll give away everything. When it comes to a gift, if he wouldn't have received some benefit from the donor, the person who's giving him, the person who he's giving this item to, he wouldn't have given him a gift. Even a kid doesn't go around just giving things away. Obviously, he got something in return. Therefore, the rabbi said, his gift should be a valid gift, right? The people should be of service and people will do good things for him. So it's an interesting thing. Again, we're not talking about a kid who's not bar mitzvah, who's not 13. We're talking about a kid who's between the ages of 13 and 20, let's say, and he doesn't understand really real estate. So we say a sale is not a sale. He can't sell something. If he bought it on his own, according to Rashbam, we're talking about his father's assets, selling his father's assets. What about buying stuff on his own? That's a question. That's questionable. But if he's selling his father's assets and he doesn't understand real estate, we're afraid of that. But if he's giving something away, presumably he wouldn't give it away unless he got something good in return.
Under bar mitzvah, that doesn't.
Under bar mitzvah, you certainly cannot do. Under bar mitzvah, metalton is okay, just that kids can buy and sell so that they could have, they could live.
Under bar mitzvah, metalton would be okay?
Yeah. Metalton is okay, even though it can't be Adis. Huh?
Why is there?
Because they can't make, it's only for buying and selling items like that, but not for a doraisa. For a doraisa, he has to own it. And the rabbi said,
if it's matato matana.
So here's the thing: you can give him something, but he can't be maknit back to you. You can give it cut into cut. What's the problem with bar mitzvah?
Yeah, something away here.
Right. No, but that's it. So here we're talking about giving karka away, as he gave it. We say he could give karka. His matana is a good matana, but again, it's drabanan because his matana is so. Here we're talking about he's bar mitzvah. He's bar mitzvah, so he could give something. If he's not bar mitzvah, he can't. If he's not bar mitzvah, he can't give anything away, right? So therefore, now, but you're asking about metalton, he can buy and sell. Buying and selling is different. In other words, I don't think his mekach as the rabbis were mafker the money in order for his livelihood. But for a lulav, presumably, he doesn't need it for his livelihood. In other words, they're buying and selling metalton so that they can live, so that they need milk, they need whatever they need.
Look about the
Matanos or matanas speaking about, there we're talking about a 13, we're talking about a bar mitzvah. We're talking about a bar mitzvah. He's bar mitzvah already. If he's not bar mitzvah, he certainly cannot give away anything, except buying and selling for household items that he needs. That would be okay. I mean, the rabbis could say, the rabbis didn't make a tikkun and say, you give your lulav to a kid, so it's his. What's the problem? He can't give it back. So they're going to be mafkrit and give it to you. In a case like that, that wasn't something that the rabbis made a tikkun for. It wasn't necessary. Amar of Nachman. Nachman says like this. Amar Shmuel, Bodkin, L'Kedushin, L'Gerish, L'Chis. Now, normally we don't check. We assume that a kid who's 13 years old is bar mitzvah. But if a suffix comes up, you have to check him. There are many cases when the father of the bride sent witnesses to the mikveh to check on this guy, right? To check on this guy to see if he had if he had reached puberty. So, pardon? Of course, it happens a lot. People do it. Now, today we don't assume that because we know if a guy's got a beard, he's whatever. You assume. Don't forget also, people get married today at later ages. It's not like they're getting married at 14, But when they're getting married at 13, 14, somebody's got to be checked. Some of them Nachman, some are Shmuel. Both can you do check for kedushin. Now kedushin, what's the nafkamina? Obviously, if it is it a good marriage or not? Let's say a 12-year-old gives and there's two witnesses. Kedushin, right? It's not a kedushin. Let's say somebody tomorrow gives her a kedushin again. The second one's married, not the first one, right? So if you know the first one is for sure a marriage, and a second guy gave her kedushin the next day, it's meaningless. You don't even need to get because it's meaningless. So questions come up. So for kedushin, for gerushin, the Gemara is going to say once he was checked for kedushin, what do you have to worry about gerushin? Gerushin always comes after kedushin. After kedushin, right? After you marry, you can't divorce her before you're married to her. More or less that. Ula chalitza. Chalitza also has to be bar mitzvah. Ula miyunin, and she can only be memayin until she's 12 years old, right? So you have to check also if she wants to make miyun, she wants to walk away from a marriage to Rabbanan, if her father was out of the picture and her mother or brothers married her off. If she's bat mitzvah, can't do it anymore. You can't just refuse it. So these things have to be checked. To sell his father's assets, so we're passing like the second shita. Not the 18, you got to be 20. The kivin the bitkana. So okay, so for that you got to be 20 and have simanim, as we saw before, right? Like they wanted to check the dead body, right? What were they checking the dead body over there? What was the purpose of checking? To see if he was. We said even if he's 20, isn't he a gadol anyway? That's only if he's a saurus. If he had simanim of a saurus. If he didn't have simanim of a saurus, he had to be 20 and have simanim. Okay, because then he's not even bar mitzvah. If you're 18 or 20 and you don't have puberty, you're not bar mitzvah at all. You're not chayiv mitzvahs and etc. Your actions are meaningless. Okay, I mean you can buy and sell, milk and groceries like a child, but you're not really bar mitzvah. So says the Gemara, once you check him for kedushin, if the rule was that they checked all, let's say, young men for kedushin, and they made sure he was 13. So obviously he was 13 when you get divorced. What's the point of checking for divorce if you already checked him when you were kedushin? So then it's case of yibam, as we said before. Reuben was married, died with no children. Shimon, his brother, was only 10 or 11 at the time. He can't do chalitza, right? But right, he can't do him. But the question is, so he didn't do kedushin because his brother was makadosh. His brother died. So now you want to in a case, it doesn't mean the yibam to make yibam. As we said, yibam could even be 9 years old. El yibam the tanan. In other words, when would you have a case of gerushin? You have to check gerushin. If a case where the boy was less than bar mitzvah when he was miyavim, the tanan ben teisha of yom echad. He's 9 years old. Shabal yivimto. He had bia with his yavama, with his brother's widow. Kana, he acquires it. But he can't give a get until he's 13. So when would you check for gerushin? Obviously, if you check Yankel for kedushin, he's already bar mitzvah when it comes to divorce. If the same person wants a divorce. But where would you check for gerushin? In a case where there was no kedushin. For example, Reuven, he was makadosh the woman. He married her. Then he died with no children. Shimon was 11 or 12 years old, and he can only he can make yibam, but he can't give a get yet. Can't give a get until he's 13 years old. So he's stuck with her. La chalitza, what is the point of the chalitza? Obviously, they were married already, right? Or not necessarily married already, because again, the brother Shimon was never married to her at all. So what's the point of chalitza? Why do you say you have to check for chalitza? It says ish when it comes to chalitza. But a woman can even be less than bat mitzvah when she gets chalitza. Kamash Mala, no. Makshin ish lish. The point of chalitza is that you check the woman also. Check the woman also. She has to also be bat mitzvah. Not only the boy has to be bar mitzvah for chalitza, she also has to be bat mitzvah. That's the point. You check for chalitza. That means kedushin, and for kedushin. Or for gerushin minat Torah, the girl doesn't have to be bat mitzvah, right? Let's say her father marries her off. She could be 1 day old. He can marry her off. She doesn't have to be bat mitzvah. For gerushin, she doesn't have to be bat mitzvah as long as she knows that she's getting the get. If it's against her will, like minat Torah. Today, gerushin can only be done with her consent, so therefore she has to be bat mitzvah. But kedushin and gerushin, for boys, it was always that way. Chalitza, the chiddush is that, that both have to be bar and bat mitzvah respectively. Kamashmalan Devakshin Yishlish. We don't know like Rabbi Yossi. Ulami Unin. What's the point of checking for Miyun? What are we checking for? Pukim Rabbi Yehuda. From Yehuda, Damar Achir B'Shachar. Rabbi Yehuda says it's not enough that she, in other words, even if she's already had shtei saros, she could still do mian until she has a lot of pubic hair, until it sort of rests one on the other. In other words, until she has a whole darkened area in the pubic area. The whole pubic area is darkened. So he holds that you don't check for shtei saros, because even after she has shtei saros, she can still make mian. Kamashmon delok Rabbi Yehuda, we don't like Rabbi Yehuda, but rather if she has shtei saros already and she's bat mitzvah, no more mian. You can't sell his father's assets until he was 20. We had a machlokas, we started off today by saying they have to be 18 or 20. One says 20, no, one says 20, we say 20 to exclude from the one that says 18. The Ilchus of the halach is tochsman kluf neizman, like we said, just like by bar mitzvah or 18 or 20. If you're in your 13th year, 18th year, or 20th year respectively, no, you haven't done it. It's got to be your birthday, your 13th birthday, 12th birthday, 18th birthday, 20th birthday. If you know what you're doing, all you have to do is be bar or bat mitzvah. Like Mar Zutra, who said what? Mar Zutra said that only from a taltlin is the edus a good edus. But you can't give edus, just like you can't sell when you're under 20. Let's say you can't sell if you don't know what you're doing. You also cannot give testimony about values. Like a maimer that Matani could give. All these things that Rav Nachman Shmuel just said on this stuff. That you check for kedushin, for gerushin, for chalitza, for miyunan, and all these other things that we check for. The Allah is like him and all of them. Now Rashbam points out over here in the wide lines in the Rashbam before the Mishnah. So take a look at Rashbam. Let's see, 3 lines before the Mishnah in the Rashbam. All these halachas dafka if he's selling his father's assets. Let's say he's not 20 years old and he doesn't really know business that well, but he was given these gifts himself. Shakana or Shakana metalklin she'enim rishus adnas fathers, right? Hanu mocher pachos mi ben esrim she'enim yerushas avosav. Hanu these mocher pachos mi ben esrim kedim metalklin. So if he was given things that are not his father's, or he was given a gift, maybe even of real estate, then even if he's less than 20, he could sell. In other words, it could be that this halacha about not being able to sell his father's assets only if it's his father's assets in the estate. But if he got his own stuff, something was given to him, then he could even sell it, just like he could sell metalflin once he's bar mitzvah, even if he's not 20 years old yet. That's how Rashbam learns. Others learn that no, this whole discussion is only on stuff that he bought himself. But if it's his father's, he definitely cannot sell it until he's past 20. No matter, even if he has sense, even if he understands business, he can't sell until he's 20 years old. All right, we'll pick it up from the Mishnah tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem. Have a good day.
Good night.